back at last. Welcome to week 1 of the 2012 high school football season in the East Valley. Alongside Kyle Odegard, I am Mark Heller. We're going to quickly break down a few of the top matchups to begin season 1. And I know it's barely the end of August, but it's football season already, like it or not. And I suspect most people actually do like it. To get things off with a little wrinkle, we're actually going to start with a game that's going to happen on Saturday. Brophy Prep down in Phoenix will take on Santa Margarita, a state champion from California, I should say, who returns a fair amount of talent. And this is billed as a pretty big matchup between one of the best of Arizona and certainly one of the best in California. The game will be 7 p.m. on Saturday on ESPN2, live from Phoenix College. And I sort of want to get your take on this, Kyle, as to whether this game, pits, not only does it pit the best of Arizona versus California, but it feels like Arizona has had somewhat of a jealousy factor in itself as it relates to California schools. If Brophy beats a very good Santa Margarita team, does that tide change at all? Is suddenly Arizona, and should Arizona then be talked about as being California level in its football?
Right. Well, I don't think Arizona will ever be there just because California is so big and has so many players. Top to bottom, Arizona will never compete, but I think it's fair to say Arizona is definitely getting better at football with the population boom out here. It'll be a great matchup. Brophy, like you said, probably one of the best teams in Arizona. Santa Margarita, definitely one of the best in California. I think people think Santa Margarita is going to win this game, and Brophy also has to deal with playing on Wednesday against Mountain Ridge. They had trying to deal with the schedule, trying to get in all their PowerPoint games as well as getting this game. So I'm sure they're hoping they can just blow out Mountain Ridge in 2 quarters, rest all their guys, get all their starters out, and prepare for Santa Margarita. But yeah, it's definitely a statement game. Arizona's done well against Nevada. Hamilton's going to play against the California team in Ireland. So, there's always a pride factor there. You always want to play well for your state, and I'm interested to see how it turns out.
Yeah, the scheduling part is was very interesting. It's basically, as you said, Brophy plays at Mountain Ridge on Wednesday night, and then turns around and plays at home to Santa Margarita. So basically 2 games in 4 days and 3 games in 10 days, which is pretty unprecedented, and there was a whole mess as to how that basically shook out, but what's done is done, and it's going to be a tough test for Brophy, but a very interesting one as well. And
Scooter Molander talked to some programs in the Midwest who have to do that for the playoffs, where they play, I think it's Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday. Right. They said, get your kids in the swimming pool right after, get loosened up. And so I think he's got a game plan. We'll see how much it affects them because they've never done it before. It also helps that they're at the beginning of their schedule, because they can kind of game plan for both of them instead of it being in the middle of the year where you're just going to concentrate on one team. So they've had enough time to look at both teams. So we'll see if it affects them. It should be pretty apparent in that 3rd and 4th quarter if they're sucking wind or not at that point.
Yeah, and Brophy is among many things, but they're never not prepared for opponents. That is for sure. The other big matchup I think in Division I is Hamilton and Mountain Point, and 2 teams with championship aspirations for sure. Hamilton coming off the bitter disappointment of last year's state championship game against the Mountain Point team that brings back a pretty good amount of talent. And I feel like if Mountain Point can find some balance offensively, they could really give Hamilton fits.
Yeah, last year was a good game, low scoring. It'll probably be the same thing this year, where first game for both teams, there might be some mistakes, and both have good defenses. So I think it should be a good game. I have the same questions about Mountain Point's offense. I'd like to see if they can have balance, if they can throw the ball. Hamilton's got such a good defense. Mountain Point's not going to score a lot, but if they can get a big play or get a big play defensively or special teams, they have to do something. And if they can get that lead, you never know.
Yeah, I agree. And I think Hamilton's defense is going to eventually find itself for real, and Mountain Point's finding its way a little bit still on offense, and that's usually – in the offense defense pecking order, usually offense comes last. And I think that's going to take a little bit more time, but I do agree. I think it'll be a pretty low-scoring game. That one is probably 1B in the pecking order of games to see this weekend. On the far east side of town, Westview, Avondale School, longtime contender in Division I, will play Red Mountain. Ron Wisniewski at Red Mountain thinks this is about as good a Red Mountain team as he's had in his now 3 years at the school. And there are a couple of pieces that are waiting to be figured out, but when you've got a returning quarterback as they do in Mason Thorman, that's a really good start. So that's going to be a good one. Westview, a very disciplined team under Jeff Bowen, loves to run the ball, and everybody knows they love to run the ball, and they still succeed at doing it. So how well Red Mountain can stop that run right out of the gate will be a pretty good indication of how that game is going to go. Desert Mountain and Mountain View, an interesting matchup, one we never would have seen a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And not terribly geographically tied either. Chad DeGrenier now in his second year at Mountain View, still some people squirming about him, still don't like the direction of the program. Others note the way his past has gone, that the second year is a pretty good jump. If his previous track record as coaching is any indication. What do you see out of Mountain View in the second year with DeGrenier?
Yeah, I'm in wait-and-see mode. Like you said, he did it 2 separate times at Cactus Shadows, where he went from 0-10, and 2 years later he won a state championship, and then he rebuilt again. And it seems like his formula is always having a sophomore quarterback. They kind of take their lumps that first year, and the team grows with the quarterback. So Chase Funk is a junior this year, so they're hoping, they went, I think, 4-6 last year. They're probably going to try to win 6 or 7 games this year, just get in the playoffs, and then keep moving up. I think it's tough in Mountain View. I don't know if they have the players anymore. We'll find out a lot in this first game, because Desert Mountain came out last year and really dominated that game from start to finish with Kyle Allen and Mark Andrews. That was kind of their breakout game as sophomores, and now they're both back as juniors. So that quarterback to wide receiver connection is going to be tough to stop for the Toros. And even if Mountain View can make this game more competitive, I think you're going to know that they're more on the right path. I don't think they necessarily have to win. Obviously, that'd be nice, but let's just see if things are going better now that Chad's offense and his thoughts are just more ingrained in those players.
Yeah, and Mountain View's schedule is somewhat advantageous for them. I think they could ultimately. I don't see them beating Desert Mountain. I think Desert Mountain's got a pretty good team returning, but I do think Mountain View has a reasonable chance of earning a playoff spot. Chaparral Salpointe. This could be a first of 2 matchups potentially. Another TV game up at Chaparral this year. 2 of the best in Division II by far. I think this is easily the best game in Division II for sure. Yeah. What do you think? What do you see early on out of Chaparral?
Yeah, they're going to have talent, but Jake Rose, their only offensive starter, coming back, and Sean Paul Brophy's a sophomore who is going to be a good quarterback, but your first game ever on varsity against a very good Salpointe team. He's got good wide receivers between Rowe and Jordan Hamilton, and then he's got Trevor Wood as the tight end. So he's got guys that'll catch the ball, but he can't worry about the moment. He's just got to try to stay relaxed, stay within himself, and I'm sure they're going to run the ball a lot, not make him do too much this first game. But it's definitely a good test, and Salpointe has a lot of experience coming back, and Salpointe almost beat Chaparral's juggernaut last year in Tucson. So they want to finish it off, and I like Salpointe to win this game. I think by the end of the year, I think Chaparral might be better once they get some experience. But right now, I think Salpointe's a little bit ahead. Yeah,
I think Salpointe's going to load the box and really try to make Chaparral now beat them through the air, which was kind of it has recently been an absurd idea in the last 3 years when Chaparral had Connor Brewer. But it is going to be a take your lumps in a tough way, and Chaparral knows that's likely to happen with a sophomore quarterback and all those returning guys. Back to Mesa, and a couple of programs trying to with new programs, new coaches trying to build themselves back up. Dobson and Westwood meet, and if this was the mid-1990s, it would be a heck of a matchup, but it's been a struggle for both programs since then. Spencer Stowers, formerly at Queen Creek, now trying to rebuild Westwood, and George Del Latore, hired from Florence, where he did wonders at both Florence and at South Mountain, now hired to try to do the same for Dobson. Do you have any sense of one of those more likely or more quickly to happen than another in terms of resurrecting the program?
I think Dobson has the advantage just with their location and demographics. They're probably in a little bit nicer of a neighborhood, so they can probably get it going quicker. But Westwood they've produced some pretty good players, and we're not really too familiar with who's going to come up this year for them. But if you put a standout at a running back or quarterback, that can be a game changer. And we'll have to wait and see what Westwood has. But it should be a good game. And if either of the teams can be impressive and win by 2 or 3 touchdowns, maybe that shows us something that they're on the right track already.
Yeah, and Westwood has been to the playoffs in the last few years, and they have on occasion had a sort of dynamic athletes have gone through that school. Depth has always been a question mark, but methinks both those schools have probably found the right person, the right mentality, the right energy level needed to get those schools back up into the contending mix. Not far away, speaking of newness and programs trying to build themselves back up, Highland and Mesquite over in Gilbert will meet. Early season, week 1 matchup of intra-district rivals, and it's actually going to play out that way for the next couple weeks because they all play one another within Gilbert. Mesquite, second year under Matt Gracie, pretty much a new staff. His defensive coordinator, previous defensive coordinator, is now the head coach at Gilbert, Leland Rogers. Pete Walheim, been there a while, feels like this is the year that they can make a move. He likes their depth. He likes some of their returning talent as well. How quickly can a Gilbert school, similar to the Mesa schools, how quickly can a Gilbert school maybe rise up and be a 500 team, be a playoff team again?
Yeah, I mean, that's what they have to shoot for right now. Both of those programs are kind of struggling. They're not at, you look down the road at Desert Ridge, they're not at that point. So I think it's a season opener, but it's important because you have a pretty good feeling both of them might be on the playoff bubble. Like you said, Highland has some better depth this year, and I think they won, I want to say, like 4 of their last 5 games last year to get up to 500.
They started 0-5 and finished 4-6.
4-6. So it's a team that's probably got a little bit of momentum. Just seeing what they did at the end of the year, and they need to win these early games to. You need to probably be 6-4 to get into the playoffs. So it's important for both teams. Mesquite's battling numbers, just sheer numbers. Their enrollment's going down. Their football program, they're trying to get kids out. So it's important for them to win these games, get in the playoffs, get the kids excited to try to build that back up.
Yeah, in addition to not just wanting to beat your rival down the street, there's definitely a psychological and mental factors involved in getting these kids feeling good about themselves that only early wins can provide. That will do it for this wrap of week 1 of the 2012 East Valley football high school season. We will be back each week to preview the next week's games. Please join us for VX Live at varsity.evtrib.com. We will start at 6:30 p.m. every Friday for all of your scoring updates, highlights, jibber jabber, banter, and anything else you want to talk about. Please join us, and don't forget to sign up to Tackle the Trib on the website as well. You can pick weekly high school football winners and win prizes. For Kyle Odegard, I'm Mark Heller. We'll see you on Friday night.